Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Arcane Episode 4. So today we begin the second act of Arcane. We go from what was very stereotypical and generic to hopefully something better. Episode 3 gave me hope that it definitely could become something better, but we'll have to see. So yeah, episode 3, the final of Act 1, was much more exciting, interesting, and got things out of the way for me. Because as I had been saying last time, and as I had said prior, some of those characters were just there to die. And it was so blatantly obvious they were just there to die that I didn't care about them or any of our actual important characters' interactions with them. Vander, Milo, and Claggor were so unnaturally boring because the show didn't have to make them into actual characters, because they were just going to kill them off. All they had to do was give them a one-note personality, a one-note role, and use them as plot devices to move along Vi and Powder's story. And that's all they did. Vander is so unbelievably simple as a character. He's a one-note former fighter, soldier, whatever you want to call him, who basically just turned his back on that because he found something worth protecting instead. And he's just this kind of upstanding guy who's just trying to be a good influence and lead his kids into a good future. It's like it's such a boring character. They don't even do anything interesting with it. The most interesting thing is his connection to Silco, and they barely talk about that. It's like it's relegated to 2 scenes. Just the one scene where it's initially shown in episode 3 at the very beginning shows what Vander is doing to Silco, but that's more Silco focused. And then the scene where it explains that later on in the episode. That's the only things that they really go into with this, and they don't do enough. If there was anything actually explored with that, then maybe Vander would have been a more interesting character, but he's not. And Claggor and Milo were just insanely generic. There was nothing to care about them with. They were so one note, it's not funny. And I did not care, even slightly, about them. Vi was kind of mixed for me in the first act. There were some points where it's like, okay, I can kind of like what she's doing here. But then there were also plenty of points where it's like, I don't really like you that much. And Powder was one of the characters I actually did like. Which, I mean, she becomes Jinx, so I guess that's fitting, considering I do like Jinx. She's one of my favorite champions in League, both to play as and in terms of just personality and what I know of their character and all. But I don't know, I connected with her in a way that literally almost no one else I could. She was just one of the only characters in this that had, well, enough character and was likable at the same time. Um, and I kind of feel like the story is her and Vi's story, so it's like I'm kind of mixed on the fact that I don't really like Vi as much, but I do kind of really like Powder. And now that she's with Silco, I'm wondering what's going to happen with her. Is Silco going to facilitate her transformation to Jinx, or does that come later? Um, and then there's also the Piltover characters. We have Jace and what's his face, who I can never remember the name of. You guys even mentioned it to me in the comments last week, and I don't remember it. Um, I can't even remember what letter it starts with. All I know is I don't trust him, and he hasn't really given me a reason to. But Jace is a scientist who was basically, he had his position terminated and everything by the council for something that really wasn't even his fault. It was because of what the kids did. And so now he is kind of going along with this untrustworthy guy. Victor? Is it Victor? It might be Victor. But they're going behind the council's back, and they break into Heimerdinger's lab, successfully complete Jace's experiment, and it seems that they have at least one council member behind them working with them now. Jace is the other character I'm invested in, besides Powder. It's really those two that I actually like and care about and want to see where they go. Practically everyone else is either feels like a plot device to me or just isn't interesting. Or I just don't like. Like Victor. I do not trust him for a second. But then there's like other characters that I know are popular. Like the councilwoman, who's now, I guess, siding with Jace. I know she's popular. I've seen people talk about her. I don't understand why she's popular, though. I've seen nothing so far to give me that reason to like her. But I've only seen the first third of the series, so to be fair, that might come as this continues. Now, I also know that this series has a time skip at some point, because I know that Jinx appears in this series as Jinx. I don't know if that's going to occur right away with going into this second act, or if it's going to happen going into the third act, or at the very end. I don't know. I don't know how that's all working. But I'm interested to find out. I definitely am curious. Caitlyn was also introduced, another champion in League. There were a few champions in League who were introduced. And Caitlyn, she had a connection with Jace before he was, before he lost his position and all. I wonder if that's going to come back at any point. Because it happened in like episode 2 when Jace was introduced and everything. Her parents didn't want her associating with him after he was, after he was punished. And we didn't see her again in episode 3. So I don't know like what role she's going to play outside of just the one thing I have seen for her in a couple like pieces of fan art that I've seen. I know something that's going to happen with her. I don't know how it happens. There's a lot of questions, but I know she gets a connection to a certain character that she had no connection with in the first third. So I'm wondering how that's even going to happen. But also I know that she has a connection to this character because I know Caitlyn from League of Legends. So it's like, I'm trying to keep it vague if it wasn't clear, by the way, for anyone who might not know yet, just in case. Um, but yeah, I know the character from League of Legends, so I know that these two characters, Caitlyn and this other one, do have that connection. So I'm wondering how it happens. Um, but otherwise, I have no idea how that's going to occur. I have no idea like what's going to lead Caitlyn to that or the other character. I don't know pretty much anything about how this is going to go at this point. We'll just have to see. And hopefully, it gets better from here on out. Hopefully, the second act and the third act are better than the first, because if the first act is what you can expect, even with episode 3, if the first act is what you can expect with this series, I don't see the hype behind it. In fact, I very much don't. Because right now it's not as good as many other things that I have watched more recently. Stuff like The Owl House is unequivocally better. Hell, I'd even say The Ghost and Molly McGee at this point. But it's also all personal taste too, and I've been known to go against the popular opinions quite often. So, yeah. Either way, we're just gonna get this started. See what this episode has in store for us in the beginning of Act 2. So, let's do it. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So yeah, we did have a time skip here. We had some amount of years. I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd probably say maybe 10 years. I don't know. I mean, they were mentioning time and everything passing in the episode. I don't know if I maybe missed something like where they said the exact amount of time, but I'd say it's maybe been a decade since the first third of the series, since the first act. So this episode focuses on Progress Day, a day of progress for Piltover. This city of progress that is super technologically advanced has this day in which they celebrate progress and the advancement of society and technology. And during this, Jace is supposed to present a new thing he's been working on, but due to Heimerdinger's influence, kind of gets cold feet and chooses not to. However, during a council meeting, he ends up being invited onto the council by the one lady who he's been working with. Heimerdinger ends up seconding this, surprisingly enough, and he gets a council seat, an 8th council seat for the first time in forever. Like, it's been 7 seats for generations, apparently. And presumably it was less than that before, so. But it seemed like he didn't want that. It seemed like it was something that he was not a fan of. I don't think he wants the responsibility and the pressure of all of that. But we'll see. But definitely, I'm definitely interested in his story here. And now with what was going on, and with Victor seeming very disappointed by the fact that Jace chose not to present, I'm definitely suspecting Victor even more. I don't know, I just think like Victor is using Jace for his own ideas. Like, I don't trust him. He's so fucking suspicious in everything he says and does. I just don't trust him. But then you have Caitlyn. So Caitlyn has all grown up and become a cop. yeah, not trying to endear me to her right away, are you? Um, and I know she's a cop in the games and everything in the lore from the games, but it's like, yeah, not trying to endear me to her, are you? um, and she's being put in these menial positions, these just security positions, though she wants to actually be clearly a detective. She loves doing detective work. She loves actually solving cases and wants to be able to do some real investigative work. But her boss isn't letting her. Um, Probably because of her heritage. Like, it seems like the other cops had been looking down on her because of her, being a rich girl and all, and coming from a wealthy family. And it seems like that might be the case for why she's being given these menial jobs. Um, which it's like, you know, I actually kind of get, because it's like she's both a rich girl and she's a cop, and it's like, again, not doing a lot to endear me to her. Like, it's very clear she's not a huge, like, fan, I guess you could say, of her wealth. She doesn't seem to want to use it, and doesn't seem to want to flaunt it or anything. So I'll give her that. And in terms of her police work, it does seem like she is just trying to help and, solve cases and be a good detective. But yeah, it's I know this is a fictional fantasy world and everything, but she's still a cop, and it's like, I can't ignore that. It's a very bad look, honestly. Um, so it's like, I like her personality. I even like her character and what they're seemingly doing with her, but I can't get behind her with her being a cop. I can't. But at the end, she goes to interrogate a guy who works for Silco, who she almost got to interrogate after a an attack by Jinx, who we'll talk about in a bit. Um, so we see her go to the prison and finds out that the guy had his jaw broken and he can't really talk much because of that. So she goes to meet with the person who did it, and we find out that that person who did it is Vi, which, kind of curious as to why she did it, but I assume she knew who he was, because I assume she knew who he was as Silco's minion and all, so that kind of checks out then. So Caitlin and Vi are going to have a talk now. So, okay. Um, and I'll just say it here if it wasn't obvious. Caitlin was the person I was talking about with, oh, how is Vi going to connect with her in the pre-thoughts? It was Caitlin I was talking about. I've seen plenty of fan art of these two. Um, Both safe for work and not. So it's clear people ship them. I'm interested to see how that all goes down and how their relationship works out and everything. Um, but yeah, so that since it connected them in this episode, I feel like I can mention it here. They were the ones I was talking about, Caitlin and Vi. So, anyways, let's talk about Jinx. Powder has grown up and is now acting as kind of Silco's right hand in a way. Uh, she's going with on missions to, you know, move Shimmer and whatnot, and help act as basically security in a way. Um, and she's going crazy. She sees this girl with the pink hair on one of the jobs and associates it with Vi, of course. and completely goes nuts, completely just loses her shit. Um, and we also see that she ends up burning down a building as a distraction, but also rigs it to explode, which ends up killing a bunch of officers and almost, well, at least does a lot of damage to Caitlin as well. All is a distraction for her to be able to steal Jace's technology, the perfected gemstone of Hextech, the Hextech gemstone. So she steals that and some documents and everything and is able to use that for her own experiments and technology, while serving Silco still. Jinx's personality is not quite there for me. Like, it seems to be like it's maybe like she's not entirely insane yet. Like, is she still on that path? But I'm not hugely like that scene where Silco comes to talk to her and she's like singing along to the Get Jinxed song and everything, and just like vibing and having fun and everything in her little lair or whatever you want to call it. Like, that seemed more Jinx like to me. But everything else in this episode, she didn't feel like Jinx still. She was way too serious, way too vengeful, way too like, not like, yeah, in fact, I just say it, emotional. She was too emotional. And the Jinx I know is just more insane and doesn't think about that kind of stuff. She doesn't take anything seriously. She doesn't take anything personally. She's just kooky and crazy. And so it's like, this doesn't feel like Jinx to me. So it's like, I get that it's still probably on the way of getting there, but I almost feel like I don't want to call her Jinx. Because it doesn't, because to me, this isn't Jinx. So I almost feel like she should still be called Powder here. And that the Jinx name should come like once she truly embodies that character and personality. I don't know, it's just a thing for me, I guess, maybe because of the source material and knowing the character and being one of my favorite League characters, champions. It's like, yeah, it's like I want her to be like I know her to be. So it's like, it's just I can't get into her yet. It's just it's not enough for me. It just, again, she just doesn't feel like Jinx. And honestly, even outside of that, with what she is, like, just in terms of where she's gone, the fact that we had this time skip and suddenly she goes from, like, being this, like, sad, kind of vengeful looking child to this almost feels kind of out of nowhere. Like, why is she as crazy as she is? Like, what caused that? Silco wouldn't have caused that. That's the problem with a lot of time skips and things too. It's the reason why I dropped Young Justice Outsiders, because it just, all the time skips that happened just ruined Young Justice for me, and it just, I could not, it just, it ruined characters. It just completely ran over things and just developed new things that just came out of nowhere. And it's like, we're just supposed to accept and understand everything as it is, even though we have no context to how it became as it is. And it's like, I just can't get into that. So it's like this time skip here. If we get another one into when we go into the third act, I don't know. It could. I'm a little worried about it. That's all I'm saying here. Because if they do another time skip, I just feel like it could ruin a lot. And with the second season already confirmed, it's just like, I don't want it to do that. But yeah, I can't get into Jinx yet. It's just, her personality is just kind of like out of nowhere for me. And like again, just personal thing with like I can't see her quite as Jinx yet. Um, Silco seems the same as ever though, and Vi we get like a very small glimpse, so it's hard to say. Um, but yeah, it seems like this is going in a almost different direction now. Which I guess makes sense now that things have changed so much after episode 3 and again, a large time skip. Um, I'm gonna keep my mind open to things, but right now it's like I don't know. It's like it's just not doing much for me. I'm still not seeing the appeal. I'm still not seeing the hype for this series, and it's just like it's trying to make me care about characters that it's also not doing anything to endear me to. Like you're trying to make me care about Caitlyn, but you make her a rich cop, and it's like, oh my god. It's like, well, again, they didn't really make her a rich cop; she already was. But it's like you're trying to make a rich cop as one of the endearing characters of the series. It's like, do you understand what year you're releasing this in? It's like having a rich person slash cop be an endearing character is not a good look for you in 2021. Just saying. Um, yeah, it's just at least we have at least we have Jace. I can like him. He's just he's a scientist. I can like scientists. Um, and I mean, yeah, I liked Powder before. I actually liked her more um in the first act. Again, now it's just kind of like throwing me off too much with the personality shift and the not quite being Jinx thing. It's throwing me off. So it's like I'm not even as invested in Powder anymore based on this episode. Jace is probably the only character I'm really invested in right now, which I hope that changes, but I don't know if it will. We'll see. Um, because it's really the characters that will drive this for me, because the story itself is just kind of eh. Anyway, the story was kind of eh in the first act. Really hasn't seemed to improve that much here. So, yeah. Tell me your thoughts down below. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.